Chapter 2367, Sword King? Chapter 2367, Sword King? How dare he? Everyone in the venue looked at Shifeng as if he were a fool. Long Xianglong was the strongest member of the Long family's second generation. He was even capable of contending with Hermit, and now that the Long family had secured the right to rule Azure, his status in the chamber was even higher than Hermit's and Duan Hanshan's. The various superpowers would do anything they could to befriend Long Xianglong at this point, and yet, Shifeng had done the exact opposite, destroying any goodwill he had earned from helping Silent Wonder achieve victory. There's definitely something mentally wrong with that guy, Big Sis Jade. After that outburst, Zero Wing had likely lost any access to Azure's resources, the blue-clad assassin beside Jade Bamboo said, frowning. Long Xianglong was the second most influential person from the Long family's second generation. He had the authority to decide much regarding the family's and Azure's future. Even if he decided against attacking Zero Wing after Shifeng's offense, it was almost certain that the guild wouldn't get anything from the Azure Chamber of Commerce. Everything Zero Wing had invested in this competition was for naught. What is he thinking? Jade Bamboo felt as if she were going mad as she watched Shifeng. Does he think that helping Silent Wonder win this competition is enough to stand on equal footing with Long Xianglong? Earlier, Duan Hanshan hadn't called Long Xianglong Lunatic Long because the man was a fighting maniac, but because of the way he conducted himself. Once Long Xianglong decided to do something, no one could dissuade him. He would try to achieve his goal at all costs. It was easy to imagine what outcome awaited Shifeng for offending the man. Shifeng had already secured Azure's bountiful resources for his guild, yet he had thrown that away just as quickly. Not even a fool would be so wasteful, yet Shifeng had done so without any hesitation. Jade Bamboo had just finished her report to her alliance master and proposed a partnership with Zero Wing, too. I knew this kid wouldn't play by the rules. This is going to be interesting, Duan Hanshan said, grinning. Duan Hanshan was known for how protective he was of his faction's members in the Azure Chamber of Commerce, but he also knew how to view the bigger picture and prioritize. Long Xianglong, however, didn't. The man only prioritized his own goals, which was why Duan Hanshan didn't want to quarrel with him. While whispered discussions filled the venue, Long Xianglong turned toward Shifeng. What? Do you think I'm wrong? Long Xianglong asked in a warning tone. With those words, everyone felt a chill crawl down their spines. Long Xianglong hadn't said much, but they could all hear his rage. They had no doubt that the man would attack anyone who dared to speak up. And yet, when Burning Owl heard the warning, he wiped the sweat from his brow and sighed in relief. Thank goodness Third Uncle didn't just attack, but Black Flame should know how to back off. Burning Owl was very familiar with his third uncle's general attitude. It always gave him huge headaches when he had to deal with the man. He had thought his third uncle would have attacked Shifeng without a second thought. Fortunately, Long Xianglong had held back out of respect for Silent Wonder. Even an ordinary expert would realize what the man was thinking as they faced his third uncle's frightening killing intent. As long as Shifeng had half a brain, he should know how to respond. However, Shifeng's reply dumbfounded Burning Owl and the various superpowers upper echelons. That's right. That assumption is incorrect, Shifeng immediately replied. Wonder might be able to develop well in Azure, but her development in Zero Wing would be just as successful. Silent Wonder's talent went without saying. Not only had she been one of the 10 great Grandmaster alchemists in the past, but she had also been a Tier 5 powerhouse. Even the various superpowers had been helpless against her without dispatching a Tier 6 God-ranked expert. Although the Azure Chamber of Commerce had a foundation that rivaled super guilds, Zero Wing was just as capable of nurturing experts. After all, Zero Wing had the extraordinary tower. None of the various superpowers had this advantage, and the Realms of Truth were far more beneficial to magical class players like Silent Wonder than the Realms of Refinement. If Silent Wonder could master the Realms of Truth, she would gain strength far beyond that of reaching the Domain Realm. This was the very reason that Violet Cloud commanded more combat power than Fire Dance and Gentle Snow, despite having the same combat standards. Of course, as soon as Shifeng finished his statement, silence returned to the venue. Is his brain broken? Burning Owl nearly cursed aloud when he heard Shifeng argue. Not once, but twice. Shifeng had provoked his third uncle twice. It's no wonder why this kid dared to provoke me earlier. It seems he had no fear of death. Duan Hanshan was stunned by Shifeng's response. Even he was afraid of provoking Long Xianglong. The only people that could keep the man in check were the Long family's old man and Azure's guild leader. Long Xianglong didn't respect anyone else and typically did as he wished. While the various superpowers upper echelons watched, their envy of Zero Wing vanished instantly. Now, they merely laughed and ridiculed Shifeng's ignorance. Even Silk Moon, who had watched this play out in silence, gave Shifeng a strange look. "You're quite interesting, young man. I don't know how many years it's been since someone has spoken to me like that," Long Xianglong said, flashing Shifeng a wrathful grin. "You must be confident in Zero Wing's strength since you think it can help Wonder's development as much as Azure, right? In that case, why don't you show me this strength?" Third uncle. Silent Wonder rushed forward to dissuade Long Xianglong. "Do not interfere, Wonder. I want to see the standards of the guild you so favor," Long Xianglong said as he raised his hand to stop Silent Wonder. He returned his attention to Shifeng and said, "My requirements of your guild aren't high. Since you're the guild leader, you should have satisfactory combat standards. If you can survive 10 moves against me, I'll stand aside. However, if you fail, Wonder will have to leave Zero Wing. Of course, Zero Wing will still gain access to the resources it deserves. What do you think?" As far as Long Xianglong was concerned, Shifeng was an ignorant fool that had grown arrogant because he had obtained some good equipment for Silent Wonder, and Silent Wonder still viewed God's Domain as the same kind of virtual reality game of the past. She simply didn't realize the advantages the Azure Chamber of Commerce had in God's Domain. "What? Are you afraid?" Long Xianglong taunted, interpreting Shifeng's silence as fear. As Shifeng was about to speak, White Autumn suddenly stepped forward. "Is this necessary, Brother Long? Can we not allow the younger generation to make their own decisions?" White Autumn asked. Everyone was surprised by White Autumn's intervention. What relationship does White Autumn have with Zero Wing? "I can't believe he's actually willing to stand up for the guild in a situation like this," Jade Bamboo muttered as she curiously glanced at Shifeng. Now that the Long family ruled Azure, the various superpowers would fight for its favor. They'd do anything in their power to support Long Xianglong, and yet White Autumn chose to support Zero Wing. This was simply unbelievable. "Please do not try to stop this, Vice Guild Leader White. This is between us," Long Xianglong said. Although he was just as surprised, he rejected White Autumn's advice. "Brother Long, you misunderstand. I'm not trying to stand against you. I'm only doing this for your own good," White Autumn said, shaking his head as he smiled. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. "EU, what are you trying to say?" Long Xianglong coldly demanded. "I mean that you're no match for Guild Leader Black Flame," White Autumn explained with a sigh. "I'm not a match for him?" Long Xianglong laughed. "And why not? Do you think that Azure is no match for Zero Wing just because it has powerful weapons and equipment that Azure cannot secure its own?" Long Xianglong knew that Zero Wing had powerful foundations. He could easily evaluate Silent Wonder's equipment. As Zero Wing's guild leader, Shifeng's weapons and equipment should be just as good, if not better, than Silent Wonder's, but that didn't mean that the Azure Chamber of Commerce was inferior in this regard. It is because he is a Tier 3 Sword King. Chapter 2368, Venue Shocked. Chapter 2368, Venue Shocked. White Autumn hadn't been loud, but everyone in the venue had heard him clearly. They immediately turned toward Shifeng in astonishment. He's reached Tier 3? Impossible. Instinctively, they refused to believe White Autumn's claim, especially the furious Long Xianglong. He assumed White Autumn was trying to trick him. Is White Autumn joking? How can that kid be Tier 3? Not even Duan Hanshan believed White Autumn's statement had been serious. Apex experts like Duan Hanshan had been fighting to reach Tier 3 for a while, yet even now, he wasn't confident of completing his promotion quest and intended to train for a while longer. Meanwhile, Shifeng was merely the guild leader from a pseudo-superpower. He had nowhere near as much access to resources as Azure's Grand Elders. It'd already be impressive if the young man had reached level 100, not to mention tier 3. However, Hermit suddenly stepped forward and confirmed, he is indeed a tier 3 Sword King. Shocked silence filled the venue again after Hermit supported White Autumn's statement. Not only had White Autumn claimed that Shifeng was a tier 3 player, but now Hermit, one of Azure's Grand Elders, agreed. Either these two men were playing a joke, or they were telling the truth. However, Hermit should have no reason to lie with his status and position. Everyone turned to stare at Shifeng, their expressions changing. Rather than seeing a simple pseudo-superpowers guild leader, they saw Shifeng as a tier 3 powerhouse that could effortlessly slaughter tier 2 players. It's no wonder why Hermit turned a blind eye to his earlier transgression. So, he's a tier 3 Sword King? Realization dawned on Burning Owl. Hermit was famous for his strict nature in the Azure Chamber of Commerce. He wouldn't tolerate an outsider killing one of Azure's peak experts, yet he had done precisely that at the Dark Hills checkpoint. He had even admonished the surviving peak experts that guarded the checkpoint. Hermit wasn't trying to interfere with the two main families' affairs, he just wanted to prevent any friction between Azure and Shifeng. Tier 3? He's certainly hidden his strength, Jade Bamboo muttered. Now, she watched Shifeng with a more serious gaze. She hadn't thought that Zero Wing had such an incredible foundation. The Tier 3 promotion quest was an exceptionally difficult trial. Based on what she knew, none of God's domain superpowers had successfully nurtured a Tier 3 player yet. If Shifeng were truly a Tier 3 player, her Adventurer Alliance would need to re-evaluate the potential partnership with Zero Wing. Meanwhile, Long Xianglong's complexion shifted between red and white. He was silent for a long moment, but eventually, he gritted his teeth and glared at Shifeng. Excellent. You actually tried to trick me. Even he would have to flee from a Tier 3 player. The difference between the tiers' power was simply too massive to overcome, which was how Tier 2 players so easily trampled over Tier 1 players. Meanwhile, Duan Hanshan was relieved that he hadn't attacked the man earlier. Otherwise, he would have been in this awkward position, rather than Long Xianglong. Elder Long, do you still desire a match? Shifeng asked, smiling faintly. Shifeng could understand Long Xianglong's desire to drag Silent Wonder to the Azure Chamber of Commerce, but he couldn't ignore the man's insult that Zero Wing would destroy her future. If Long Xianglong wanted a match, Shifeng didn't mind showing off Zero Wing's foundations. No need. I admit that I am no match for you right now, Long Xianglong decided. However, the difference between our individual strengths doesn't prove anything. Nurturing experts require a massive amount of resources. Is Zero Wing better equipped than Azure to handle that requirement? How would we know if we don't try? Shifeng nonchalantly replied. Azure had a lot of resources, but Zero Wing wasn't as unprepared to nurture experts as it had been in the past. This was especially true now that Zero Wing had accumulated a huge stockpile of primal void stones. Once the guild constructed a combat room with those stones, it would be just as capable of nurturing experts as current superpowers. Furthermore, Shifeng had a better understanding of what awaited players after Tier 3 than anyone. Good. Very good. Azure holds this competition between the shareholder family's younger generation every year. Naturally, Wonder will participate in next year's competition, as well. Show me how far she'll develop with Zero Wing without Azure's resources. Long Xianglong snarled before he turned and left. Third uncle. Silent Wonder felt anxious as she watched Long Xianglong storm off. Zero Wing had expended a lot of resources to help her improve. She had hoped to return the favor with resources from Azure once she had won the competition, but Long Xianglong's attitude made it clear that he had no intention of giving her guild a single cent. Don't bother, second sis. You know how third uncle is. We'll have to wait until he calms down to persuade him, Burning Owl advised, trying to ease Silent Wonder's nerves. She had no choice but to give up, despite how guilty she felt. Meanwhile, the various spectating powers joyfully grinned at Shifeng, especially Duan Hanshan. Despite helping the Long family a great deal, Zero Wing would walk away with nothing. Why wouldn't Duan Hanshan be pleased? Black Flame is very strong, but he's foolish. He threw away such a golden opportunity. Yang Xiaoqian looked at the man, a little disappointed. It seems Silent Wonder won't be a match for me in the next competition. Black Flame really is stubborn. If he hadn't provoked Long Xianglong, he would have secured precious resources from the western continent. Not only would Zero Wing have grown stronger, but it would have had an easier time fending off the otherworld's invading powers. But he's lost everything. What can he possibly do by himself? The blue-clad assassin beside Jade Bamboo surmised, just as stunned by Shifeng's performance as the rest of the crowd. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Shifeng might be very strong and deserve respect for reaching Tier 3 so soon, but he'd only have that advantage for a short time. His status as a Tier 3 player would be meaningless once the various superpowers experts were the same tier. How exactly did Zero Wing intend to compete with the Azure Chamber of Commerce then? Jade Bamboo nodded in agreement. She had planned to convince her alliance master to negotiate a partnership with Zero Wing, but it seemed that it was no longer necessary. Similarly, the other superpowers that intended to approach Zero Wing about an alliance dismissed the idea. Shifeng didn't remain in Demonstone Town after Azure's competition reached its end. He and Silent Wonder immediately teleported back to White River City. Since the very beginning, he had never viewed Demonstone Town's resources as important. He had only one thing on his mind, his territory in the Cold Spring Canyon. Once he developed the area, the resources Azure could offer would pale in comparison. Chapter 2369, Candlelight's New Benefits. Chapter 2369, Candlelight's New Benefits. 2 lights flashed in White River City's teleportation hall as Shifeng and Silent Wonder returned. Although they had only been away from the city for about half a day, it had changed significantly. There were visibly more players in the teleportation hall than when they had left, and many of these players originated from the various otherworlds. Their life auras were clearly different from the main continent's ordinary players. Many of Star Moon Kingdom's original inhabitants couldn't help but envy these otherworld players when they saw them. Being a silver member in the Star Moon Adventurer Alliance is wonderful. The Alliance actually lets them tag along with so many experts when questing and leveling up, a level 92 shield warrior in full level 90 mysterious iron equipment said as he watched a team walk toward the teleportation array. I wonder when I'll get promoted to silver rank. When I do, my friends in guilds will die from envy. Silver members might get excellent benefits, but becoming one of the Alliance's elites is easier said than done, one of the shield warrior's teammates, a level 93 assassin, said. Major powers from several otherworlds founded the Star Moon Adventurer Alliance recently, and they've made huge investments in the Alliance. As a result, they've substantially raised the requirements to reach silver rank. You only used to need to reach the Trial Tower's 5th floor to become a silver member, but now, you need to reach the early stage of the Trial Tower's 6th floor. That's old news. I've heard they've recently raised the bar to the 6th floor's middle stage, and you need to make significant contributions to the Alliance. Isn't that a little too much? The level 92 shield warrior exclaimed. Even in our adventurer team, only a handful of people can meet that requirement. I know, right? The level 93 assassin said, sighing. As players' average combat standards rose, the requirements to be considered an expert increased as well, but even at this stage of the game, the various major powers considered a player an ordinary expert if they could reach the late stage of the Trial Tower's 5th floor. The Star Moon Adventurer Alliance, however, required its silver members to reach the 6th floor's middle stage, much to the despair of many of the Alliance's ordinary experts. These otherworld powers are moving so quickly. Shifeng was surprised when he overheard the conversation. The various otherworld powers had only established adventurer alliances to recruit independent players after encountering resistance on the main continent during his previous life. Since individually, these powers' abilities and resources were limited, they usually worked together to run an adventurer alliance. And yet, these otherworld powers had begun to work together much sooner than they had in the past. Naturally, this would have a greater impact on the main continent's various powers. After all, independent players made up the majority of God's Domain's player base. With this thought in mind, Shifeng hurried toward the Candlelight trading firm. The Otherworld Powers partnership would even have a massive impact on Super Guild's development, not to mention Zero Wing. If Zero Wing wanted to survive this invasion, not only would it have to grow its members' overall strength, but it would also have to recruit far more capable players. While they walked, Shifeng instructed Silent Wonder to level up so she could complete her Tier 3 promotion quest sooner than later. Her combat standards weren't low, and she was just a step away from the Void Realm. She shouldn't have any issues completing her promotion quest as soon as she reached level 100 with the help of the enhanced Crimson Sunset. She'd likely have an even easier time completing it than Cola and the others. The first thing Shifeng did upon returning to the Candlelight trading firm was to contact Melancholic Smile and have her prioritize the Crimson Dragon flying ship's production and material collection. He also told her to recruit more lifestyle players with high potential. After players reached level 100, lifestyle players would become a guild's main source of weapons, equipment, tools, and potions. The power that commanded the most lifestyle players would gain control over weapon and equipment supply after level 100. Fortunately, the various major powers would only figure this out once they began to explore level 100 neutral maps. Guild Leader, the various otherworld powers have been rapidly expanding their lifestyle player recruitments lately. Moreover, they are offering considerably high salaries. It won't be easy to compete with the Adventurer Alliance in this regard since it is an independent organization, Melancholic Smile said, smiling bitterly. To make matters worse, the kingdom's independent players have gone crazy since the Star Moon Adventurer Alliance has published its membership policy. Some lifestyle players have even begun to withdraw from their large guilds to join the alliance. Although Candlelight had a massive competitive edge thanks to its 4-star shop in White River City, that edge was only effective against the various large guilds. Independent organizations like the Star Moon Adventurer Alliance were a different story. As long as the alliance offered some benefits, both lifestyle players and combat players would be more than willing to join. The alliance's rules weren't particularly strict, after all. I understand. Shifeng nodded. But no matter what, we need to accelerate the trading firm's development. From now on, I intend to give normal members access to the meditation rooms as well, but they'll have to pay 10,000 GCPs per hour. We'll also open the research workshop to all internal members for 50,000 GCPs per half hour. Core members will receive a 20% discount for the research workshop. These conditions should be enough to lure in quite a few capable lifestyle players, Melancholic Smile said, her eyes glowing with excitement. The basic meditation room was extremely helpful to lifestyle players, especially those who hadn't yet reached the master rank. The room's environment was miraculously effective when players practiced production methods. In addition, the meditation room could help players when they created basic master designs or recipes. Access to the rooms was a very attractive benefit to lifestyle players. Candlelight's normal members hadn't had any access to the basic meditation rooms thus far since there were too few available, but now that Candlelight had a 4-star shop and 5 3-star shops, the number of rooms available had skyrocketed. Renting some of the basic meditation rooms to the trading firm's normal members wouldn't affect the internal members' development in the least. Moreover, Candlelight wasn't strict with its normal members. Normal members were only required to produce a certain number of items every day. If lifestyle players learned that they could rent basic meditation rooms as a normal member in Candlelight, they'd lose their minds. Only 3-star shops and greater had basic meditation rooms, and at this stage of the game, very few powers had 3-star shops, most of which were superpowers. Generally, these superpowers reserved the basic meditation rooms for their master lifestyle players. Normal members had no hope of using them. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. However, Candlelight's players, regardless of lifestyle rank, would be able to rent a basic meditation room in the Candlelight trading firm. Furthermore, based on the value of Candlelight's GCPs, 10,000 GCPs were only equal to 30 gold. Renting a basic meditation room for 30 gold an hour was a bargain that lifestyle players wouldn't find anywhere else in God's domain. The various adventurer alliances might be able to offer more resources and freedom, but these factors wouldn't be nearly as helpful to a lifestyle player's development as a basic meditation room. Shifeng left Melancholic Smile to oversee the adjustments and recruitment. He then resumed the Crimson Sunset's production to help the guild's core members prepare for their Tier 3 promotion quests. After half a day of work, White Autumn Secret visited the candlelight trading firm to fulfill his transaction with Shifeng. In exchange for 50 crimson sunsets, Shifeng instantly obtained 900,000 gold and 600,000 magic crystals. I finally have enough money. Time to visit the Adventurers Association. Shifeng brimmed with confidence as he gazed at the astronomical sum of coins in his bag. He left the candlelight trading firm immediately, heading toward the Adventurers Association. Chapter 2370, Night Division takes shape. White River City, Adventurers Association. Chapter 2370, Night Division takes shape. White River City, Adventurers Association. Due to the new Starmoon Adventure Alliance in Starmoon Kingdom, White River City's Adventurers Association had become extraordinarily lively. When Shifeng arrived, he spotted teams entering and leaving the building. Nearly half of these players were from Otherworlds. There were now many times more Otherworld players than there had been several days ago. Moreover, every one of these Otherworld players was impressively strong, with the lowest level among them level 98, while many had already reached level 99. These Otherworld players' average level was far higher than the local players. There are so many people here. Has it started already? Shifeng was a little surprised as he watched the teams flow in and out of the association. The Otherworld powers weren't the main continent's various powers' true opponent. Rather, it was the Otherworld's general populace. When the planar passages had first opened, only the Otherworld's asterisk major powers had been able to cross to the main continent since they had monopolized their respective passages. However, as the passages activated fully, not even those major powers could control them completely, and as a result, players surged toward the main continent. Competition on the main continent had already been intense, and now, as powerful Otherworld players joined the fray, it was easy to imagine the impact they had on the main continent's various powers. Players would especially fight over the resources in the various NPC cities. Take the Adventurers Association, for example. There were only so many high-ranked quests available, and with an increase in player population, it was natural that players would have fewer quests to complete. If resources became less available, the various large guilds' development would slow significantly. The guilds that hadn't bothered to focus on neutral maps, in particular, would suffer. This lack of resources would be fatal to them. This was why even superpowers had fallen prey to the Otherworld powers in Shifeng's previous life. Even if the main continent's ordinary powers hadn't been directly affected by the invasion, the after-effects had been more than enough to stagnate their development. Currently, Zero Wing had a wide sphere of development. The guild even had territory in neutral maps. Zero Wing shouldn't have any issues enduring the initial Otherworld invasion. However, the guild still needed to be very careful with its operations. Otherwise, Zero Wing would suffer a severe developmental blow since multiple hostile superpowers were keeping an eye on it. Thinking up to this point, Shifeng entered the Adventurers Association. Administrator Lorraine, I wish to check the status of the night draft. Shifeng addressed the elven beauty that entered the VIP reception room he occupied. The 5,000 knights were crucial to his management of the Cold Spring Canyon. Although he had spent a lot of money to draft these knights, he hadn't bothered to visit the Adventurers Association since he hadn't had enough money. Finding willing and powerful NPCs wouldn't matter if he couldn't afford to hire them. Hiring NPCs for a night division wasn't like hiring NPCs as soldiers to protect a guild town. He would not receive any subsidies from the kingdom. It was like nurturing 5,000 personal guards. Without sufficient capital, he couldn't support the night division. Now, however, he had 900,000 gold on him, which should be, more or less, enough to establish his night division. This is the current status of your draft, Lorraine said, smiling as she handed Shifeng a thick stack of papers. He was dumbfounded when he saw the listed numbers on the summary sheet. Aren't these results a little too amazing? Shifeng couldn't believe his eyes. His draft had attracted 20,164 NPCs in total. Among them, 13,664 were Tier 2 Common Knights, 4,814 were Tier 2 Bronze Knights, 1,669 were Tier 2 Mysterious Iron Knights, 15 were Tier 2 Secret Silver Knights, and 2 were Tier 2 Fine Gold Knights. Shifeng had assumed he'd be fortunate to gain the interest of 5,000 NPCs with his draft. Recruiting NPCs wasn't easy, after all. Players that weren't one-star lords would have to spend 2 or 3 months to find enough interested NPCs. And yet, he had over 20,000 NPCs apply for the draft, and they were frighteningly high quality. Based on what Shifeng knew, most of the NPCs in a Superpowers Knight division would be Bronze Knights, with very few Mysterious Iron Knights. Mysterious Iron Knights were just as rare as Mysterious Iron Personal Guards. Only the Knight divisions that had been in place for a while had attracted Secret Silver Knights in the past, and one would have to be very lucky to find treasured Fine-Gold Knights. Shifeng had never imagined that his simple draft would lure 15 Secret Silver and 2 Fine-Gold Knights. If the various superpowers of the past knew about this, they'd go mad with envy. As for Tier 3 NPCs, recruiting such a being was painfully difficult in God's domain because they were considered powerhouses in the game. They qualified to rule over a small city. Naturally, they wouldn't be willing to lower themselves to becoming someone's knight. However, when Shifeng saw the prices to recruit these NPCs, his excitement vanished. The Bronze Knights only requested a weekly salary of 30 gold, with a 20 gold per week nurturing fee, but the Knights of higher ranks cost far more. Mysterious Iron Knights requested a weekly salary of 70 gold and a 30 gold per week nurturing fee. Secret Silver Knights requested a weekly salary of 150 gold and 50 gold per week nurturing fee, and Fine-Gold Knights requested a weekly salary of 300 gold and 100 gold per week nurturing fee. If Shifeng hired the best available knights, maintaining his knight division would cost him 336,400 gold per week. Even superpowers would choke at this amount, and that didn't even include the cost of arming these knights. Lord Bronze Legatee, may I know who you wish to choose? Lorraine asked after Shifeng's long silence. I want all of the Fine Gold, Secret Silver, and Mysterious Iron Knights. Fill the remaining slots with Bronze Knights, Shifeng said, his heart aching as he spoke. Also, outfit the Secret Silver and Fine-Gold Knights with epic equipment, and give the rest Secret Silver equipment. Fortunately, arming these knights cost as much as arming NPC soldiers. A full set of level 100 to level 150 epic equipment cost 4,000 gold, and a full set of level 100 to level 150 Secret Silver equipment cost 50 gold. Even so, it still cost him a total of 317,150 gold to outfit his entire knight division. Very well. Your total comes to 653,550 gold coins, Lorraine announced after calculating the total cost. Here, Shifeng said, gritting his teeth. He was reluctant, but he still paid the full amount. If he hadn't just earned 900,000 gold, he doubted he'd be able to walk out of the Adventurers Association. Shifeng finally understood why so few first-rate guilds had formed knight divisions in the past. Although it was profitable to own territory in a level 100 neutral map, the knight division was a heavy burden. If not handled carefully, a first-rate guild would easily go bankrupt. Only superpowers could afford to maintain a knight division without major repercussions. Now that you have hired your knights, please prepare their accommodations in your territory as soon as possible. If they do not have suitable accommodations, they may dissolve their contracts, Lorraine warned Shifeng after she received the payment. At the moment, there wasn't even a town in Cold Spring Canyon. That won't be a problem. I wish to transfer Stone Forest City to my new territory now, Shifeng said. He then handed another 50,000 gold to the Elven administrator. Once players had a land of their own, they had the authority to transfer a guild town or city to the area. Of course, the transfer had a price, which would depend on the target size. Transferring a basic city like Stone Forest City would cost 50,000 gold, while if one transferred an advanced town, they'd only have to pay 10,000 gold. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU mainstream players had already reached level 95, while most experts were, on average, level 97. They weren't far from level 100. Once players reached level 100, they wouldn't be allowed into the bottomless abyss. Although the bottomless abyss had bountiful resources, it would become drastically less useful to players as time passed, and as a result, Stone Forest City's daily income continued to decrease. Rather than let the city rot in the bottomless abyss, Shifeng would benefit from transferring it to a level 100 neutral map as soon as possible. That won't be a problem. We'll send people to transfer your city immediately, Lorraine said as she accepted the 50,000 gold. She retrieved a map of the Cold Spring Canyon, smoothing it down on the table. Where do you wish to place the I want to transfer it here, beside Cold Spring Lake, Shifeng said as he pointed at one of the mountaintops near the lake. Very well. The transfer will be completed in 1 hour, Lorraine informed him once she had confirmed the destination. Once Shifeng had settled his affairs with the Adventurers Association, he promptly returned to the candlelight trading firm to wait. At the same time, Stone Forest Town abruptly disappeared from the bottomless abyss, leaving a bunch of confused players in an empty plot of land. Chapter 2371. Abyss Shaken. What happened? Why am I outside? Chapter 2371. Abyss Shaken. What happened? Why am I outside? Where's the city? Crap. I just got here, and it just disappears. The players forced out of Stone Forest City looked around them in confusion. Stone Forest City was the most prosperous city in the bottomless abyss. Even though the various superpowers had established their own guild towns in the regional dungeon, these guild towns were nothing compared to Stone Forest City, especially when it came to training. Stone Forest City provided enough mana density that it was a holy land for training. Moreover, players could recover their exhausted stamina and concentration far faster in Stone Forest City than in the Superpowers Guild towns. Many teams that explored the bottomless abyss relied on the city as their resting point, including teams from the Superpowers that had their own guild towns. This made Stone Forest City the most popular resting area in the bottomless abyss. And yet, the city had just disappeared. Even players from the Dark Knight Empire's various major powers were stunned, not to mention the independent players. None of them had expected Stone Forest City, the closest resting area to the bottomless abyss's second floor, to suddenly vanish. Has something happened to Stone Forest City? Since the city disappeared once everyone was teleported out of it, Zero Wing must have transferred the city elsewhere. Transferred Stone Forest City elsewhere? Is Zero Wing insane? Does the guild want the bottomless abyss's resources? All of the various major powers members had their guesses regarding the city's abrupt disappearance, and they all reported back to their superiors. For a time, the various powers in the bottomless abyss were in an uproar. Stone Forest City had become irreplaceable in the bottomless abyss. Almost every power that wanted to explore the regional dungeon had to use the city, or their progress would fall behind their competition. Naturally, as one of the city's shareholders, the secret pavilion immediately received the news. What is Zero Wing doing? They moved Stone Forest City without mentioning it to us? Don't they know that this is a crucial moment for conquering the bottomless abyss? Yuan Tiexin's expression darkened as he read the latest report. Currently, the various superpowers were frantically trying to explore the bottomless abyss's third floor. The loot in that area was incredibly important. Not only did the third floor's monsters drop plenty of top-tier, level 95+ weapons and equipment, but they also dropped a ton of magic crystals. There was even a higher chance to obtain 7 Luminaries crystals on that floor. Very few maps in God's domain could offer as abundant loot as the bottomless abyss's third floor. Moreover, since the planar passages had opened, the situation on the main continent had become painfully tense. A war of unimaginable scale could break out between powers at any time. Even the secret pavilion had to prepare. Stone Forest City's sudden disappearance from the bottomless abyss would definitely impact the secret pavilion's plans. The secret pavilion's guild leader had even called Yuan Tiexin personally about the matter. Uncle Yuan, what should we do now? Purple Jade asked. She was also quite concerned about the situation. After training in Stone Forest City, she had improved considerably. Now, she was only one step away from reaching the domain realm. We have no choice. We have to meet with Black Flame now. The matter frustrated Yang Tiexin. The secret pavilion owned some of Stone Forest City's shares, but Zero Wing held absolute authority over the city. Zero Wing might have an obligation to inform the secret pavilion of any decisions regarding Stone Forest City, but in truth, that didn't really matter. The secret pavilion simply had no say. While Yuan Taishan and Purple Jade made their way to White River City, the various superpowers in the bottomless abyss took this opportunity to claim the prime real estate Stone Forest City had left behind. While the various powers were making a fuss over Stone Forest City's disappearance, Liang Jing was having a nervous breakdown over it. After barging into Shi Feng's special forging room, Liang Jing reported, "Guild leader, Stone Forest City has disappeared." I know." Shi Feng, who was in the midst of producing a crimson sunset, nodded. "You know?" Liang Jing was shocked into a moment of silence. "Guild leader, is this your doing?" "That's right, I did it," Shi Feng said, not bothering to hide the truth. After all, he had the most authority over the city. No one could transfer a city without permission. "Guild leader, Stone Forest City is one of our guild's main sources of income. Although we're not earning as much from the house's rent, we have just as many players interested in renting them. That rent alone is enough to fund normal operations of Zero Wing's main headquarters. With Stone Forest City gone from the bottomless abyss, many players are going to demand a refund." Liang Jing exclaimed as she massaged her temples. Currently, she was in charge of most of Zero Wing's headquarters affairs, especially now that Blackie and Gentle Snow had left their daily tasks to her. What gave her the biggest headache, however, was handling the payments that required credits. To ease the management flow, Shi Feng had granted her authority to manage Stone Forest City's income. After a few months, she had finally managed to balance the headquarters' expenditures and Stone Forest City's income. And yet, Shi Feng had just relocated Stone Forest City elsewhere, rendering her efforts useless. "Relax. They won't ask for a refund," Shi Feng said, chuckling. "If they do, we can give them a refund based on the original price. We can even refund them in coins if they want." Stone Forest City's private houses had always been leased for credits. Receiving a refund in coins would be a welcomed bonus. Although it was becoming easier to earn coins, players had to bear more expenditures in God's domain. As a result, players weren't able to save a lot of coins as they reached higher levels. Hence, money farming teams and workshops were extremely popular among players that wanted to pay credits for coins in God's domain. God's domain was like a second world to players. Since coins were more useful in God's domain, players were naturally more willing to spend credits than coins. "If we do that, we'll still have to pay at least 100,000 gold in refund," Liang Jing said, exasperated at Shi Feng's nonchalant attitude. At this point, she was neither Chairman Xiao's secretary, nor was she ignorant of God's domain. On the contrary, she spent more time in the game than in the real world. She knew exactly how valuable 100,000 gold was. Even to the various superpowers, it was a significant sum. "Here's 100,000 gold, hold on to it for now," Shi Feng said as he passed the gold to Liang Jing. He then continued, "Later, send me a summary of how many people wanted a refund. I intend to hold a leasing auction for the empty houses. We'll start the bidding at 30,000 credits per week." 30,000 per week. Liang Jing gaped when she heard the price. When Stone Forest had still been in the bottomless abyss, they had leased the private houses for 40,000 to 50,000 credits per month, except for the first month's auctions. Even so, most players couldn't afford the rent. Yet now, Shi Feng wanted to lease the houses for 30,000 credits per week. It was utterly insane. The bottomless abyss was the best grinding spot in God's domain at the moment. Outside of the regional dungeon, the property value in Stone Forest City would plummet. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU take care of the necessary preparations, Shi Feng said, not bothering with the task. He sent Liang Jing away to take care of Stone Forest City's new leasing plan. He had already considered the consequences of relocating Stone Forest City out of the regional dungeon. The city did provide a considerable supply of top-tier, level 95+ weapons and equipment, but that wasn't what Zero Wing needed most right now. The guild needed funds and strength. Rather than trying to squeeze the bottomless abyss for everything it had, Zero Wing would benefit more from focusing on level 100 neutral maps. Exploring these areas would be particularly profitable since the various superpowers were just beginning to encounter level 100 neutral maps. It was an opportunity for Zero Wing to make a killing, and there wouldn't be another in the future. Shortly after Liang Jing left, Shifeng heard the sound of a system notification. System: Stone Forest City's transfer is complete. You may open Stone Forest City at any time. Chapter 2372, Territory strengthened. The transfers finally complete. Chapter 2372, Territory strengthened. The transfers finally complete. Shifeng stopped working when he heard the system notification. Hurriedly, he called up Stone Forest City's system interface to inspect the city's current status. In God's domain, not only did a territory's lord have the authority to transfer a guild town or city to their land once, but their town or city would also gain a random bonus once the transfer completed. Of the potential bonuses, one was increased defensive capabilities, which would strengthen the town against monster assaults. Another potential bonus was increased size, allowing the town or city to accommodate more players. Shifeng knew it was possible for the system to increase the town or city's mana density as well. Based on what he knew of this bonus, the town or city's mana density would undergo a qualitative transformation. Naturally, this bonus was particularly valuable in level 100+ maps. These maps had harsh environments, and the mana density in the town or city would determine players' stamina and concentration recovery rates. In the past, any town or city that had received the mana density bonus had become instantly popular among players exploring level 100+ neutral maps. The powers that had owned these towns or cities had no lack of customers. After calling up Stone Forest City's system interface, Shifeng browsed through the lines of data until he found what he was looking for. Stone Forest City, current location, Cold Spring Canyon current rank, basic city bonus acquired, magic array enhancement. Shifeng's face lit with excitement when he saw the bonus Stone Forest City had acquired. Of the many bonuses a territorial town or city could acquire, the two best were mana density enhancement and magic array enhancement. Every player desired the former, of course. However, the powers that ruled these towns or cities hoped for the latter more than any other potential bonus. Not only would the magic array enhancement fortify the city's defensive magic array, allowing it to endure stronger attacks, but it would also reinforce the magic array's spatial isolation effect. Level 100+ neutral maps environments were particularly severe, plagued with a chaotic energy that invaded players' bodies and lowered their stamina and concentration recovery rates. When players returned to a town or city, they had to rest for quite a while to recover fully. However, a town with an enhanced magic array could lessen the effects of the chaotic energy, accelerating players' recovery. This greatly increased the amount of time they could spend grinding in the fields. Magic array enhancement was just as effective as enhanced mana density. With this, I won't have to worry about the guild members' leveling speed in the Cold Spring Canyon. Shifeng felt as if he had just won the lottery. The 50,000 gold he had spent to relocate Stone Forest City could be considered the random bonuses fee. Had he been unlucky, Stone Forest City would have merely gained a popularity bonus, which was only slightly useful. However, since the city had gained the magic array enhancement bonus, even Tier 2 players could grind in the Cold Spring Canyon without any concerns. Moreover, with the leveling resources available in a level 100 neutral map, the guild members' leveling speed in the Cold Spring Canyon would likely rival their leveling speed in the Bottomless Abyss. In addition, they could grind for level 100 weapons and equipment much sooner than others, which would definitely increase Zero Wing's overall strength by a large margin. While Shifeng planned to send Zero Wing's core members to Stone Forest City as soon as possible, Liang Jing contacted him. Guild leader, the secret pavilion's people have arrived and wish to speak with you. By the looks it, this seems urgent. Do you want to meet them now? The secret pavilion sure moves quickly, Shifeng said, chuckling. Send them to me. The secret pavilion owned some of Stone Forest City's shares, and now that the city had vanished, it wasn't unusual for the pavilion to grow nervous. Not only had Stone Forest City become a valuable source of resources for the secret pavilion, but the various superpowers had been in the midst of exploring the Bottomless Abyss's third floor shortly before the city disappeared. Moreover, everyone was concerned about the various otherworlds' invasion. After a short moment, Liang Jing led a middle-aged man and a young woman into Shifeng's special forging room. They were none other than Yuan Taishan and Purple Jade. Both secret pavilion members had already reached level 100, and they both wore multiple pieces of epic equipment. Even the weakest piece between them was level 95 dark gold rank. Moreover, Purple Jade radiated an astonishing life aura. When it came to basic attributes, these two likely rivaled God's kin players. Regarding combat power, they could rival domain realm experts. Purple Jade might even be stronger than a domain realm expert. If Yuan Taishan and Purple Jade worked together, even the various superpowers would have to be cautious. However, they showed no sign of the arrogance experts of their caliber usually possessed as they entered the room. On the contrary, they looked upon Shifeng with awe and admiration. They had already learned that Shifeng had been promoted to Tier 3, and they knew his strength transcended that of Tier 2 players. Now, he was a powerhouse that even the various superpowers would have to be careful of. I assume you two are here to ask about Stone Forest City? Shifeng said, getting straight to the point. That's right, that's exactly why we've come, Yuan Taishan said, nodding as he gave Shifeng a confused look. We're in the final stages of exploring the bottomless abyss. The third floor is a treasure trove of top-tier, level 95 weapons and equipment. Why has Zero Wing given up on the regional dungeon and relocated Stone Forest City? You know that the situation on the main continent has become more complicated. The various otherworld powers have begun to set their sights on various areas of the continent. A large-scale war will break out in the near future. Everyone has been frantically preparing for it. Meanwhile, due to Stone Forest City's sudden disappearance, some superpowers have begun to question the secret pavilion's abilities. Our guild leader is hoping that Zero Wing has an explanation for this. Of course, I do, Shifeng said, chuckling. But before I tell you, I was wondering if the secret pavilion can help me with something. Yuan Taishan was a little exasperated with Shifeng's reply. They had come here to demand answers of the man, yet he asked them for help before he'd offer an explanation. May I know what you need help with, Guild Leader Black Flame? Yuan Taishan asked after taking a deep breath. It's simple. I'd like to ask the secret pavilion to revoke Starlink's membership in the Secret Chamber of Commerce, Shifeng calmly stated. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU Starlink constantly targeted Zero Wing, particularly on an economic front. However, since a powerful corporation backed Starlink, and the guild had access to the Secret Chamber of Commerce's connections, his guild couldn't effectively retaliate. If Zero Wing could cut off one of Starlink's income sources, the enemy guild would be much easier to deal with economically. Yuan Taishan and Purple Jade were stunned, staring at Shifeng as if he were a fool. Setting aside Starlink's current position in the chamber, why would we do something so fruitless even if the secret pavilion had that power, Guild Leader Black Flame? You should know that every member is an important resource for the chamber. We cannot remove Starlink over one city, Yuan Taishan answered seriously. As far as Yuan Taishan was concerned, Shifeng must have lost his mind. Stone Forest City was an excellent asset, but even if it were still located in the bottomless abyss, it wasn't so valuable that the secret pavilion would revoke Starlink's membership for it. Even if Zero Wing offered all of the city's shares, the secret pavilion would refuse. What if Stone Forest City were located in a level 100 neutral map? Shifeng asked, smiling. Chapter 2373, New Stone Forest City. Chapter 2373, New Stone Forest City. When Yuan Taishan and Purple Jade heard Shifeng, they froze. His statement felt like a curse to both of them. Is this true, Guild Leader Black Flame? Snapping out of his daze, Yuan Taishan couldn't hide his excitement as he gazed at Shifeng. Even his breathing had become a little rushed. He showed none of the composure someone of his status should possess. The various superpowers were doing all they could to explore level 100 neutral maps. These areas would help prepare their players for their Tier 3 promotion quests, which made them desperate. However, these maps' environments were incredibly harsh, and the effects these environments had on players couldn't be mitigated with simple potions. Most importantly, the monsters in level 100 neutral maps were far too dangerous. These problems were giving the various superpowers huge headaches and preventing them from making any considerable progress. Although the various superpowers had considered transferring their guild towns to a level 100 neutral map, doing so required a town transfer token that was specific to level 100 neutral maps. Based on the superpowers reports, obtaining such a token was impossible at the moment. Only super large-scale team dungeons in level 100 plus neutral maps dropped the item. Exploring level 100 neutral maps was currently a huge problem. Raiding a large-scale team dungeon in these maps was nothing but a dream at this stage of the game. And yet, Shifeng had just told him that he had relocated Stone Forest City to a level 100 neutral map. Why wouldn't Yuan Taishan be astonished? If what Shifeng said were true, the secret pavilion would have a much greater advantage when it came to developing level 100 plus players. Of course, Shifeng said, smiling. Is the secret pavilion interested in my condition now? This, Yuan Taishan hesitated, but after a moment, he shook his head. Guild leader Black Flame, you know how important that matter is. If we revoke Starlink's membership, we'll essentially be cutting off all relations with the guild. Meanwhile, Starlink had increased the scale of its operations. In fact, it now had influence across both main continents. Many superpowers are fighting to ally with the guild. Even if you offer more of Stone Forest City's shares, I doubt our guild leader will agree to the condition. Please reconsider, Guild leader Black Flame. Demoting Starlink from an advanced member to a normal member and revoking Starlink's membership were two very different things. Starlink's demotion had only reduced the amount of resources and connections the pavilion received from the guild, but if the secret pavilion revoked Starlink's membership, it would lose all access to those resources and connections. Zero Wing had absolute authority over Stone Forest City and could refuse to open the city to the public, which would prevent the city from earning income, and the secret pavilion would lose access to the city's benefits. Unfortunately, the secret pavilion found those losses more acceptable than losing access to the resources and connections Starlink could provide. In the long run, Starlink's resources and connections would benefit the secret pavilion far more than some convenience when exploring a level 100 neutral map. That's a pity. Yuan Tiexin's answer didn't particularly surprise Shifeng. He then calmly asked, I intend to make a trip to Stone Forest City. Would you like to accompany me, Elder Yuan? We'd love to, Yuan Taishan said, nodding enthusiastically. Since Yuan Taishan accepted his offer, Shifeng gave his two guests temporary access to teleport to Stone Forest City. Meanwhile, Purple Jade started a private conversation with her companion. Uncle Yuan, are we really going to the city? She asked. She could tell what Shifeng was trying to do right now. He likely wanted to show off the city before they'd officially make a decision, but in her opinion, the act was futile. The benefits a guild city could provide and those from an alliance with a superpower were on entirely different levels. There was no need to consider Shifeng's request. Of course, we're going, Yuan Taishan said, smiling. Black Flame may be immature, but he has relocated Stone Forest City to a level 100 neutral map. It is best if we go and inspect the situation for ourselves. As long as we stand firm, he'll understand that his condition is impossible. Purple Jade understood Yuan Tiexin's reasoning, but she couldn't help but pity Shifeng. Shifeng must believe that Yuan Taishan would have a change of heart once they arrived in Stone Forest City, but he didn't realize that the older man was using his own trick against him, allowing Shifeng time to realize how useless the struggle was. While Yuan Taishan and Purple Jade privately conversed, Shifeng finished granting them temporary teleportation rights. All right, it's done. Let's head over, Shifeng said as he retrieved a guild transfer scroll for the city and activated it. Seeing this, Yuan Taishan and Purple Jade did the same for the secret pavilion's temporary residence in Stone Forest City. After a moment, the three players transformed into streaks of light and vanished from the special forging room. Cold Spring Canyon, Stone Forest City. Two flashes of light appeared above the teleportation array in the secret pavilion's temporary residence as Yuan Taishan and Purple Jade arrived. The moment their bodies manifested, however, Yuan Taishan and Purple Jade were stunned. How is this possible? Yuan Taishan nearly gasped. The mana in Stone Forest City wasn't as dense as it had been, but the instant they had arrived, Yuan Taishan felt far more relaxed. Moreover, his 5 senses had become sharper. He had been exploring a level 100 neutral map with purple jade for quite some time, and the environment's chaotic energy had made them both feel exhausted, which had a considerable effect on their combat power. Even when they had plenty of stamina and concentration remaining, they had been forced to return to a city to recover from the exhaustion. However, even when they had fully recovered their stamina and concentration, the chaotic energy hadn't faded from their bodies completely. And yet, as he stood in Stone Forest City, Yuan Taishan rapidly recovered from that exhaustion. At this rate, he'd be free from the chaotic energy within a few hours. Uncle Yuan, my recovery rate is at least twice as fast as before. If we could rest here, we'd be at least 30% more efficient when exploring a level 100 neutral map. Purple Jade exclaimed, unable to hide her shock. The chaotic energy within level 100 neutral maps was the biggest issue the various superpowers, including the secret pavilion, faced when exploring these areas. This chaotic energy forced players to rest in cities for long periods. However, if they could rest in Stone Forest City, they could explore 30% more of a level 100 neutral map in the same amount of time. In addition, Stone Forest City was now located within a level 100 neutral map, which would save them plenty of travel time. Overall, if the Secret Pavilion's members could set up a base in Stone Forest City, they could spend at least twice as much time exploring level 100 neutral maps as other players. With this much additional time, the Secret Pavilion's members would have a massive lead over the various superpowers members. After taking a moment to inspect the city's unique environment, Yuan Taishan and Purple Jade headed toward the Stone Forest City's central plaza. The city was mostly the same as they remembered. The only difference was the neutral race NPCs that filled the city streets. Many of these NPCs had set up stalls and hawked their wares. When Yuan Taishan took a peek at a stall's goods, he felt a little faint for a moment. These neutral NPCs were actually selling level 100 weapons and equipment and of considerably high quality. He had even spotted level 100 secret silver weapons for sale. Of course, these items weren't cheap, and some cost special materials. Fortunately, a driven Tier 2 expert could gather the necessary funds and materials for the items. Level 100 weapons and equipment. Players that hadn't yet begun to explore level 100 neutral maps might not find anything special about these items, but it was a different story for players like Yuan Taishan, who constantly grinded in level 100 neutral maps nowadays. When exploring level 100 neutral maps, acquiring a single piece of level 100 bronze equipment was already a challenge, not to mention obtaining level 100 secret silver weapons and equipment. And yet, the NPCs in Stone Forest City were publicly selling such items. What should we do now, Uncle Yuan? We've already rejected Black Flame's offer, Purple Jade asked nervously. She was also surprised to see the weapons and equipment for sale in the various NPC stalls. She had never expected Stone Forest City to become this amazing. If the Secret Pavilion's members could operate out of Stone Forest City, they'd complete their Tier 3 promotion quests far faster than the various superpowers. Don't worry. Since Black Flame has brought us here, he will ask if we wish to continue our partnership. We can renegotiate with him then, Yuan Taishan said. He hadn't expected Stone Forest City to offer so many benefits, either. Very calmly, he continued, let's buy some of the weapons and equipment for now. While Yuan Taishan and Purple Jade systematically cleaned out the stalls in the central plaza, Shifeng finished organizing his night division. He then left to check on his guests and told Yuan Taishan, I've finished my business in the city and have other matters I need to attend to, so I'll part with you two here. Since he had settled his affairs in Stone Forest City, he'd have to begin transferring Zero Wings experts to the city. Once they had settled and could get to work, Zero Wings development would reach new heights. Shifeng then pulled a return scroll for White River City from his bag and began to activate it. Yuan Taishan was stunned. He hadn't thought that Shifeng would be so indifferent, not even bothering to ask how they felt about the city. He certainly hadn't expected Shifeng to act as he did. Please wait, Guild Leader Black Flame, Yuan Taishan shouted as Shifeng unfurled his return scroll. Is there something else you need, Elder Yuan? Shifeng asked, giving the older man a strange look. It's about the condition you mentioned earlier, Yuan Taishan said, exasperated. We'd like to renegotiate. If Zero Wing can offer more of Stone Forest City's shares, we might be able to agree to the condition. I'm afraid that won't be possible. Zero Wing will not hand over any more of Stone Forest City's shares. If the secret pavilion must still reject my condition, I'll have to accept the unfortunate answer, Shifeng said, instantly rejecting Yuan Taishan's offer. With the enhanced magic array in Stone Forest City, Zero Wing's development speed would skyrocket. Even if Zero Wing couldn't cut off one of Starlink's main sources of income, it wouldn't be long before his guild could strike back at Starlink. Hence, he had no reason to give away more of Stone Forest City's profits. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU alright, you win. The secret pavilion will revoke Starlink's membership, Yuan Taishan said, sighing. Shifeng's immediate rejection made it clear that the secret pavilion wouldn't gain any more from the transaction. He continued, however, our guild leader asks that you can open the city to the secret pavilion's members within 2 days. That won't be a problem. Shifeng nodded. Stone Forest City was a basic city and required a lot of players to fortify it. In the bottomless abyss, Shifeng had been able to rely on NPC soldiers, but now, he could only rely on players and his knight division. However, his knights would guard his entire territory, not just Stone Forest City, and unfortunately, if he relied solely on Zero Wing's experts to defend the city wouldn't be able to operate at full capacity. Hence, the secret pavilion's experts were essential. Shortly after Shifeng and the secret pavilion agreed on their deal's terms, the shocking information spread throughout the secret chamber of commerce. The secret chamber of commerce had officially revoked Starlink's membership. Chapter 2374, God's Domain Shocked. Chapter 2374, God's Domain Shocked. As news of Starlink's revoked membership spread, a commotion erupted among God's Domain's various superpowers. What's going on? Starlink got kicked out of secret. Is the secret pavilion crazy? Maybe they sent the revocation letter to the wrong guild. That's Starlink we're talking about. Not only has it recently annexed a bunch of top adventurer teams and workshops, but it's also recruited many retired peak experts. It's the strongest among the up-and-coming superpowers, and Starlink had influence on both main continents. Why would the secret pavilion even think of revoking Starlink's membership? The various superpowers fell into heated discussions about the secret chamber of commerce's sudden internal announcement. They all felt as if the secret pavilion were playing some kind of prank. Many of God's Domain's chambers of commerce were trying to recruit Starlink to obtain the resources and connections it had to offer. By revoking Starlink's membership, not only would Secret grow weaker, but it would also strengthen its competitors. This would only harm both the secret chamber of commerce and the secret pavilion. Dark Knight Empire, Dark Knight City. The Dark Knight Empire's various powers were in an uproar over Starlink's revoked membership, particularly Crimson Emperor and Unyielding Soul. Starlink's departure from the secret chamber of commerce was a huge loss for both Starlink and the secret pavilion, but particularly for Starlink. The secret pavilion's influence spanned across the main continent, and few could rival its sales connections and resources. Otherwise, the secret pavilion wouldn't have been a publicly acknowledged transcendental power in God's domain. Without the secret pavilion's support, Starlink's development speed would slow considerably. It wouldn't be surprising if this incident reduced Starlink's income by over 30%. This was a huge blow to Starlink. Hart, do you know what exactly happened between the secret pavilion and Starlink? Illusory Words, one of Crimson Emperor's vice guild leaders, asked as she privately contacted Unyielding Heart. No one in my guild has a clue. What about your side? Unyielding Heart said, shaking his head. The situation made him restless and curious. The Starline Corporation supported Starlink, and the guild had partnered with quite a few superpowers. Most importantly, Starlink was developing on both the eastern and western continents, which gave the guild unimaginable status and influence in the Dark Knight Empire. And yet, the secret pavilion had removed Starlink from the secret chamber of commerce. It was unbelievable. The fact that the secret pavilion had done this meant that something must have happened between it and Starlink, But Unyielding Soul hadn't been able to learn any details about the situation. We don't know anything either. Not even our spies in Starlink have a clue, Illusory Words said, frowning. The secret pavilion has always maintained a neutral stance regarding the secret chamber of commerce. I have never heard of Starlink provoking the secret pavilion, either, yet it abruptly revoked Starlink's membership. It's possible that Starlink has provoked some transcendental existence, and the secret pavilion was forced to make this move. If we don't get to the bottom of this, the Dark Knight Empire will become a very dangerous place to develop. The various otherworld powers had been rapidly spreading across the continent, and it was only a matter of time before a massive war erupted between the main continent's powers and those from the various otherworlds. The main continent's resources were limited, after all, and some people were destined to be eliminated. Seeing a superpower like Starlink in such a situation, if Unyielding Soul and Crimson Emperors, lesser superpowers, were not careful, their names could be permanently removed from God's domain. I know. That's why I've already tasked people to poke around in the secret pavilion. It shouldn't be long before we have an answer, Unyielding Heart said, nodding. He, too, understood how severe the matter was. Since some mysterious power, which was strong enough to force the secret pavilion to abandon Starlink, had arrived, ordinary superpowers like them wouldn't have a place in the Dark Knight Empire if they weren't careful and accidentally provoked this mysterious newcomer. Unyielding Heart wasn't overly surprised that a new, mysterious power had arrived. The planar passages were open now, and although he didn't understand much about God's domain's multiple otherworlds, those he was familiar with were strong enough to make him shudder. It wasn't entirely impossible that some otherworlds had a secret power he didn't know about. While Crimson Emperor and Unyielding Soul fervently investigated the matter, other empires and kingdom superpowers did the same. This incident had sparked a passionate discussion in the Fire Dragon Empire, one of the continent's 4 great empires. The empire's various superpowers thought it best to take greater precautions during their important operations. The superpowers that had planned to declare a guild war, in particular, put their plans on hold, afraid of unexpected complications. Who actually has the strength to force the secret pavilion to abandon Starlink? Long Xianglong stared at the report in his hands in astonishment. Even on the Western continent, Starlink was famous. Because of the guild's powerful background, even the Azure Gamba of Gomus H&D to show the superpower some respect. And yet, without warning, the secret pavilion had abandoned Starlink. Even Long Xianglong found the situation a little unsettling. Should we warn second sis about this, third uncle? Burning Owl asked with a serious expression. If a power could force the secret pavilion to revoke Starlink's membership, it was an even greater threat to the Azure Chamber of Commerce. Yes, notify her, Long Xianglong said after giving the matter some thought. The situation on the eastern continent is more complex than we assumed. For the foreseeable future, you and your team should continue to grind in the level 100 neutral maps here. If anything happens to Wonder, I want you to lend her a hand, so her development doesn't stagnate. Don't bother to help Zero Wing, however. Since that kid dared to make such a boastful declaration before me, I want to see his guild struggle on the eastern continent. Not only had the planar passages fully opened, but some mysterious power with such strength had also arrived on the eastern continent. In Long Xianglong's opinion, as long as Burning Owl didn't secretly help it, a pseudo-superpower like Zero Wing would soon fall. Burning Owl had no choice but to nod in agreement, although he couldn't help but pity Zero Wing. Zero Wing had gone to great lengths to help Silent Wonder win Azure's internal competition, yet in the end, it failed to gain any benefits from Azure. Now, a major threat shook the eastern continent. If Zero Wing weren't careful, it would be removed from God's domain. Elsewhere, Shifeng had returned to White River City's candlelight trading firm. To prepare for Stone Forest City's grand opening, he wanted to produce as many Crimson Sunsets as possible to ensure that the guild's core members could roam the Cold Spring Canyon without issues. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to do anything, even with Stone Forest City's support. Zero Wing wasn't like the various superpowers, it didn't have a lot of experts that could fight level 100+ monsters. If Zero Wing wanted to develop quickly by relying on the Cold Spring Canyon, it would need to nurture a group of experts that could survive in the area. Without enough strength, Zero Wing could only helplessly stare at the canyon's abundant resources. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. Just as Shifeng was about to enter a basic meditation room and resume the Crimson Sunset's production, Silent Wonder contacted him. Guild leader, something major has happened. Silent Wonder anxiously announced. The Secret Chamber of Commerce has revoked Starlink's membership. I know, Shifeng said, nodding. You know already, guild leader? Shifeng's reply surprised her. Thus far, only the various superpowers, who all had powerful information networks, had found out about the situation. As soon as her younger brother had informed her, she had called to notify Shifeng. Of course, I know. I'm the one who caused it, Shifeng calmly stated as he refined the magic crystal in his hand. Chapter 2375, New Stone Forest City opens. Chapter 2375, New Stone Forest City opens. You're the one who caused this? Silent Wonder was stunned. For a moment, she even assumed Shifeng was joking. Starlink's removal from the Secret Chamber of Commerce had already caused a commotion among God's Domain's various superpowers. It made them all insecure, and they used everything at their disposal to look into the matter. They all wanted to know what kind of power could force the secret pavilion to make such a decision. And yet, Shifeng had just told her that he was responsible. How could she bring herself to believe him? That's right, Shifeng said, chuckling at Silent Wonder's incredulous look. Starlink was the reason that Zero Wing had been kicked out of the Secret Chamber of Commerce a while ago. I'm only returning the favor. Returning the favor? How are you still in the mood to joke around at a time like this, guild leader? Silent Wonder asked, exasperated. Starlink is going crazy over this right now. If it finds out that Zero Wing is responsible, things will become. Very few powers could rival the Secret Chamber of Commerce's expansive connections in God's domain. These connections might be of limited use to a pseudo-superpower like Zero Wing, but for Starlink, it was a different story. Losing Secret's resources and connections would be a huge blow to Starlink's operations. Coins and resources were the foundation of a guild's development, and without enough of both, it'd be surprising if Starlink didn't regress, let alone continue to dominate as a superpower. This incident would likely force Starlink to delay or cancel most of its plans. It would suffer unimaginable losses. If Starlink found out that Zero Wing was responsible for its removal from Secret, it would do everything in its power to annihilate the smaller guild. It wouldn't hold back as it had thus far. This time, Zero Wing had damaged Starlink's foundation, and practically every superpower in God's domain had heard about the incident. Starlink would become a laughingstock if it didn't retaliate. However, Starlink wasn't the same guild it had been in the past. Based on what Silent Wonder had learned from the Azure Chamber of Commerce, not only had Starlink grown stronger after the planar passage's opening, but it had also formed close alliances with a few otherworld superpowers. Recently, Starlink's shadow had stretched across adventurer alliances that had been rapidly developing in the main continent's various kingdoms and empires. Now, even the Fire Dragon Empire's superguilds were wary of Starlink. These up-and-coming adventurer alliances were impressively powerful. They might not look like it during peaceful times, but if they decided to move against a particular power, they could easily deal a devastating blow. God's Domain's various large guilds had a lot of members, but most of the materials these guilds needed for their normal operations came from independent players, which were the majority of God's Domain's player base. As long as Starlink paid the adventurer alliances it secretly supported a small price, it could sever any power's source of resources. While Silent Wonder tried to figure out how she could keep this horrific information secret, the various superpowers received reports from their spies in the secret pavilion. Zero Wing was responsible for Starlink's removal. The moment the various superpowers' upper echelons received these reports, they gasped in shock. How is this possible? The secret pavilion abandoned Starlink for Zero Wing? Have its upper echelons gone mad? The various superpowers could not believe their eyes as they read their subordinates' reports, yet with the facts before them, they had to believe it. Amazing. Truly amazing. Zero Wing actually pulled such a feat off. Unyielding Heart was both overjoyed and stupefied when he heard the news. Neither Unyielding Soul nor Crimson Heart had been able to move against Starlink, yet a pseudo-superpower like Zero Wing had dealt an unprecedented blow. It was unbelievable. The secret Chamber of Commerce had been as precious as an arm to Starlink, and now that it had lost Secret's connections and resources, it had lost that arm. Even if Starlink retained its strength, its development speed would slow significantly. Zero Wing is actually this powerful? Illusory words read her subordinate's report in confusion. Although Zero Wing's performance in the Dark Knight Empire had been extraordinary, the guild shouldn't be capable of threatening Starlink's foundation in her opinion. Starlink was supported by the Starline Corporation, after all. And yet, Zero Wing had just severed one of Starlink's main income sources. She doubted that even Starlink's upper echelons had ever imagined that events would unfold like this. It's no wonder why that kid so boldly rejected me. So, his guild has the secret pavilion's support. Long Xianglong was greatly surprised when he discovered the perpetrator for Starlink's removal from the secret Chamber of Commerce. However, his surprise quickly turned into disdain as he sneered and hissed, "It's a pity the guild's efforts are a waste. Starlink cannot be stopped by a single Tier 3 player. The secret pavilion will pay for its foolishness, as well." Long Xianglong knew a little regarding the conflict between Zero Wing and Starlink. Although losing the secret Chamber of Commerce's connections and resources was a major loss to Starlink, the setback wouldn't cause the organization's fall. Long Xianglong, who spent his time on the Western continent, knew this. Starlink had already sent the majority of its manpower and resources to the Western continent to establish a foothold, and as a result, it had lacked those assets on the Eastern continent. Now that Starlink's position in the West was secure, Zero Wing's recent actions were tantamount to suicide. As for the secret pavilion, Long Xianglong found its decision to abandon a superpower like Starlink to be utterly foolish. Third uncle, since Zero Wing is responsible for such a major incident, second sis will definitely run into trouble. Should I head over there now? Burning Owl asked. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. He only had a moderate impression of Zero Wing, and he agreed with Long Xianglong about Silent Wonder returning to the Azure Chamber of Commerce. She'd have more space to develop in Azure, and if she remained in Zero Wing, she'd never reach her true potential. I doubt Zero Wing will last much longer. Head over there with your team, Long Xianglong said, nodding, sending Burning Owl to Starmoon Kingdom. Long Xianglong wasn't the only one with such thoughts. The various superpowers' upper echelons shared the sentiment. As long as Starlink posted a bounty on Zero Wing, the independent players from the adventurer alliances it supported would move against the smaller guild. Not only would this restrict Zero Wing's resource income, but the guild's members would also have a tough time grinding in the fields. If this continued long-term, Zero Wing's members would become frustrated and begin to withdraw from the guild. As a result, Zero Wing would grow weaker as time passed, while all Starlink needed to do was spend some coins and resources. While Starlink set up its bounty, a commotion occurred within Zero Wing. Stone Forest City had finally opened to Zero Wing's members. Chapter 2376, Leveling Heaven Starmoon Kingdom, White River City. Chapter 2376, Leveling Heaven Starmoon Kingdom, White River City. Several dozen lights flashed in the teleportation hall as Burning Owl and his team arrived in White River City. So, this is Zero Wing's territory? Burning Owl muttered, surprised as he observed his surroundings. Usually, one could determine how prosperous an NPC city was based on how much activity there was in its teleportation hall. The average level of the players in the hall was also a testament to the region's average standards. White River City's teleportation hall was extraordinarily lively. Although the city couldn't yet rival imperial capitals, it could easily compete with Empire's top-ranked cities. God's Domain's empires were incredibly large, with easily several times the player population found in the largest kingdoms. Thus, even Empire's top-ranked cities were more prosperous than Kingdom's capital cities. As far as Burning Owl knew, very few kingdoms had cities like White River City. He was also surprised by these players' average level. Most of the players in the teleportation hall had already reached level 96, with many experts at level 98. White River City's players could even rival those in imperial capitals in terms of levels. While Burning Owl assessed the situation in the teleportation hall, several more lights flashed behind him. As these players arrived, they attracted a lot of attention. They were rather hard not to notice. The moment this group appeared, everyone in the teleportation hall was overwhelmed by a sense of dread. Players' instincts urged them to flee as the newcomers' auras washed over them. What? Starlink actually dispatched its newly formed Hellfire Legion? Burning Owl frowned when he saw them. After the planar passages had opened, Starlink had allied with the superpower that ruled over the demonic Hell World, one of the 6 large-scale otherworlds that were connected to the eastern continent. Like Dark players' favored areas, the demonic Hell World focused on slaughter, and many of its players possessed a powerful legacy, L. Individually, these players were even stronger than those from the Sea God's realm. Relying on the demonic Hell World's special legacy, Starlink had formed the Hellfire Legion, which was now the strongest legion under the guild's command. The weakest of the legion's members was a refinement realm expert, and with their special legacy, even peak experts would find these players incredibly difficult to kill. With the individual members so powerful, it was easy to imagine how horrific all 1,000 Hellfire Legion members would be when they worked together. Because of this, the various superpowers were even more afraid of Starlink. Now, Starlink had dispatched 300 Hellfire Legion members to White River City. If they had to fight those players, even Burning Owl's Heaven Pisser team would be annihilated. Vice Guild Leader, Elder Long has contacted me to inform us to avoid conflict with Starlink as much as possible, a level 100, black-clad assassin quietly reported. Aside from sending in the Hellfire Legion, Starlink has posted a bounty on Zero Wing through the adventurer alliances it supports. Starlink is offering 100 CPS for Zero Wing's elite members and 1,000 CPS for core members. The guild is even offering half of the posted bounty to players who can prove they've assisted with the kills. Moreover, Starlink has declared that this bounty will remain in effect until Zero Wing has been removed from God's domain. What a high price. Even I find it tempting. It seems that Starlink truly intends to go all out. The bounty astonished Burning Owl. He hadn't expected Starlink to be so vicious. Many independent players had joined the adventurer alliances Starlink had established with the various otherworld powers, and among them, many were powerful experts that could even rival superpowers peak experts. The adventurer alliances' contribution points were quite valuable. Players could use them to purchase combat techniques, weapons, equipment, rare materials, and even legacies. Members could even spend the points to hire a team of experts to assist with quests and dungeons. But those uses paled in comparison to their true value. Once members had accumulated enough CPS, they'd earn a promotion within the alliance, rising from bronze to silver, or silver to gold rank. As one rose through the ranks, not only would they receive a discount on any CP purchases, but at gold rank, they'd also earn a fixed credit salary each month. To top it all off, there were almost no restrictions on these benefits. The policy had lured many independent peak experts and top adventurer teams to join these adventurer alliances. A CP in Starlink's adventurer alliances was worth 3 silver, but players couldn't exchange CPS for coins. Hence, the CP reward for Starlink's bounty on Zero Wing was powerfully attractive to the adventurer alliances members. It was even enough to motivate peak experts. Even a superpower would suffer against this strategy, not to mention Zero Wing. Not even God's domain's various superpowers had thought Starlink would to go such great lengths to destroy Zero Wing. Meanwhile, when Xuanwu Chiza, who was raiding a level 95, super large-scale team dungeon in the Ore Empire, heard of Starlink's bounty, it surprised her a little. Vice Guild Leader, I doubt Zero Wing will last much longer now that Starlink is relying on its full strength. Should we take advantage of this opportunity? The elementalist Jing Yang suggested. That won't be necessary. All we need to do right now is capture the Ore capital city as soon as possible. Everything else is secondary, Xuanwu Chiza said, shaking her head. However, after giving the matter some thought, she smiled faintly and said, that being said, send someone to keep an eye on Zero Wing. The guild has grown strong enough that its members should force Starlink to reveal its current strength. Understood, Jing Yang replied. Although he was a little disappointed that he wouldn't have a hand in Zero Wing's downfall, he didn't dare disobey Xuanwu Qiza. He immediately notified some of his subordinates to watch Zero Wing. In Zero Wing's White River City residence, tension had risen among the guild's members due to the news of Starlink's bounty. Everyone was worried about the situation. They wouldn't only have to face Starlink's experts this time, independent experts from multiple kingdoms and empires were joining this fight. If they were not careful in the fields, they could easily be surrounded and slain. Zero Wing was exceptionally strong and had absolute control over a few maps, but as they reached higher levels, they'd have to explore areas outside of the guild's influence. Leveling up would almost certainly become far more difficult. While some guild members considered continuing their development in a new guild, others noticed that the guild residents had a new teleportation point. Quick, look. We can teleport to Stone Forest City again. Crap. There's a level 98 requirement, and the guild transfer scrolls cost 500 GCPs each? Wait, something's not right. Stone Forest City has been moved to the Cold Spring Forest. Cold Spring Forest's a level 100 neutral map. What? Stone Forest City is located in a level 100 neutral map now? When they saw the residence's new teleportation point, everyone was dumbfounded. They had never thought the guild would transfer Stone Forest City to a level 100 neutral map. Even the various superpowers only dreamed of accomplishing such a feat. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Some of the level 98 guild members gritted their teeth as they purchased a guild transfer scroll for Stone Forest City. Curious, they activated the scrolls the moment they received them. As soon as these level 98 members arrived in the city's residence, they were stunned by what Stone Forest City had to offer. Not only were their 5 senses sharper within the city, but they also spotted plenty of neutral NPCs selling level 100 weapons and equipment. Most importantly, they sensed the chaotic energy that corroded their bodies dissipating twice as fast as normal. With Stone Forest City's unique environment, it was a leveling haven. Shortly after Zero Wing's members arrived in Stone Forest City, they spread the news throughout the guild, causing an uproar. Naturally, the spies within Zero Wing reported to their respective superiors immediately. Chapter 2377, Enviable Stone Forest City. Chapter 2377, Enviable Stone Forest City. When they received the reports about Stone Forest City's new location, the various superpowers nearly went mad. Impossible. I thought we needed to raid team dungeons in level 100 neutral maps before we could obtain a town transfer token for those maps. Damn it. Zero Wing was actually able to do it. I want this investigated. We need to find out how Zero Wing accomplished this feat. When the various superpowers discovered Stone Forest Town's new location, the joy they had felt over Zero Wing's misfortune vanished instantly. Now, only envy and admiration remained. The various superpowers were desperate for means to accelerate their exploration in level 100 neutral maps. Unfortunately, they had found nothing, and their teams were helpless against these maps' environments and monsters, yet the areas were the future of God's domain. Players could earn significantly more EXP from the monsters in those maps than monsters in lower-level maps. In addition, level 100 maps were the only sources of level 100 weapons and equipment at this point. The various superpowers could only afford to send a large number of players to challenge their Tier 3 promotion quests once they had a sufficient amount of level 100 weapons and equipment. Moreover, fighting the monsters in level 100 neutral maps would be very helpful to players trying to improve their combat standards. Lower-level monsters were almost entirely different creatures, after all. Now that Stone Forest City was located in a level 100 neutral map, Zero Wing had an unimaginably massive advantage. Meanwhile, in the Dark Knight Empire's Dark Knight City, it's no wonder why Zero Wing dared to sever one of Starlink's main income sources. So, the guild still had such a card to play, illusory words muttered, shock and envy flashing in her eyes. A guild city in a level 100 neutral map would do more than increase the guild members' leveling speed, it could also become a new source of resources for the guild. Level 100 neutral maps had more abundant resources than level 90+ maps, and these resources catered to level 100 players. The advantage these resources would provide was imposingly large. With Stone Forest City's new location, Starlink would likely be rendered powerless against Zero Wing. The two guilds were no longer playing on the same field. Even if Starlink could target Zero Wing via its various adventurer alliances, the tactic would only be effective against Zero Wing's lower-level members. Any level 98+ members could easily avoid Starlink's bounty hunters by relying on Stone Forest City's level 100 neutral map. Moreover, they'd gain far more than they would from grinding in level 90+ maps. At this stage of the game, even mainstream players had reached level 95. Needless to say, Zero Wing's members, who were known for their high quality, would have reached higher levels. And the idea of Starlink targeting Zero Wing in a level 100 neutral map was a joke. If Starlink attacked Zero Wing in the Cold Spring Forest, Zero Wing could rely on its city's inherent advantages to beat its enemy to a pulp. Trying to sever Zero Wing from its resource sources was even more laughable. The various powers shops might still need lower-level resources, but they needed level 100+ resources far more. If Zero Wing were willing to trade these resources for lower-level items, no power would refuse it. Furthermore, Zero Wing still had the secret pavilion's support. Stone Forest City will be very helpful to players when they challenge their Tier 3 promotion quests, Vice Guild Leader. If we can secure a temporary residence in the city, we'll have an edge over other superpowers when it comes to nurturing Tier 3 players. The level 100 Berserker beside illusory words realized, glowing with excitement. Players had to conduct their Tier 3 promotion quests in level 100 neutral maps, yet these areas were far too dangerous. Finding the lost Tier 3 legacies was also quite time-consuming. However, if players had a city like Stone Forest City, they'd be able to complete their promotion quests in far less time. I know. Unyielding Soul has certainly secured a huge advantage. When Illusory Words thought about Unyielding Soul, which had allied with Zero Wing a long time ago, she could not help but envy the guild. Make the necessary arrangements. We're going to negotiate with Zero Wing. I'll get it done immediately, the level 100 Berserker answered. Aside from Crimson Emperor, a few superpowers had considered obtaining a temporary residence in Stone Forest City. Like Crimson Emperor, these superpowers promptly sent representatives to White River City. Nothing was more important to them than helping their players complete their Tier 3 promotion quests right now. Meanwhile, in an Adventurer Alliance's residence in the Fire Dragon Empire. Nothing can stop Zero Wing now, Big Sis Jade. Zero Wing actually has a city in a level 100 neutral map. Not even Azure's Demonstone Town can hold a candle to Stone Forest City, the blue-clad assassin youth beside Jade Bamboo exclaimed. So, he was telling the truth. Realization dawned on Jade Bamboo when she read the latest report regarding Stone Forest City. When Shifeng had declared that Zero Wing could nurture Silent Wonder just as well as the Azure Chamber of Commerce and without Azure's resources, Jade Bamboo had found the notion laughable. And yet, times had changed. With Stone Forest City's new location, Zero Wing would have no trouble acquiring the necessary resources to continue its rapid development. Not even the Otherworld's various powers could affect Zero Wing's progression. Meanwhile, in one of White River City's restaurants. How is this possible? Burning Owl felt as if he were dreaming as he read his subordinate's report. Zero Wing had successfully transferred Stone Forest City to a level 100 neutral map, which was something the various superpowers could only dream of accomplishing. Shortly after the various powers had learned about Stone Forest City's relocation, news had spread among the game's independent players, particularly those in White River City. Stone Forest City is amazing. If I could travel to the city, I'd reach level 100 in no time. That's not the only benefit you could get by operating out of Stone Forest City. One of my close friends is a core member in Zero Wing, and he told me that the city even enhances players' senses. If you train in the city's battle arena, your progress will be miraculous. This won't do. I'm going to take the test to join Zero Wing. The latest news about Stone Forest City inspired many independent experts to join Zero Wing. Aside from the help the city could provide as players challenged their Tier 3 promotion quests, the fact that the city could help players gain more progress when training made it impossible to reject. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. For a time, The independent experts that had hesitated about joining Zero Wing due to the recent incident with Starlink fervently applied to the guild. Some of the independent experts from Starlink's adventurer alliances even decided to switch sides, applying to become a Zero Wing member rather than target the guild. Because of Stone Forest City, many independent experts are now applying to join Zero Wing, guild leader. Based on the latest statistics, we've received over 10,000 new applications. Some of them are even from Starlink's adventurer alliances, Liang Jing excitedly reported. I doubt even Starlink expected that the experts it sent to attack us would end up joining our guild. Zero Wing had constantly been trying to recruit new members and expand its operations, yet its efforts had yielded limited results. However, due to Stone Forest City's new location, a flood of experts had shown up to join the guild. This would undoubtedly make it easier for Zero Wing to manage its territories. Moreover, since a large number of experts from Starlink's adventure alliances had turned traitor, the pressure on Zero Wing's members in Starmoon Kingdom had lessened considerably. It's too early to celebrate, Shifeng said, chuckling. Since Lu Xingluo wants to play, we'll have to humor him. Spread the news that Zero Wing intends to establish a Starmoon Adventurer Alliance in the kingdom. Any alliance member that reaches the silver rank will have access to Stone Forest City, while gold members will qualify to purchase a private house in the city. Chapter 2378, Popular Starmoon Adventurer Alliance Starmoon Kingdom, White River City. Chapter 2378, Popular Starmoon Adventurer Alliance Starmoon Kingdom, White River City. Flashing lights filled White River City's teleportation hall as group after group of players arrived. If one carefully watched these players, they'd notice that many of them wore cloaks embossed with symbols from various adventurer teams. Most were top adventurer teams from other kingdoms and empires. There were even some from other worlds. This is insane. Even Origin Curse, the Dark Knight Empire's third-ranked adventurer team, is making a move. I've heard that Starlink is going all out to eliminate Zero Wing this time. The organization is even offering certain benefits in addition to the current bounty. Depending on how much players accomplish, they can even earn special legacies. Zero Wing's in trouble now. Most experts might have a problem with the environment and monsters in a level 100 neutral map, but peak experts and top adventurer teams shouldn't. I know, right? Getting to the Cold Spring Forest might be easier for Zero Wing's members, but once they're there, Zero Wing's ordinary experts will fall. Besides, exploring a level 100 neutral map is still a problem. Even if Zero Wing sends reinforcements from Stone Forest City, they'll likely suffer significant losses. As bystanders in the teleportation hall watched the various top adventurer teams and peak experts arrive, they were shocked, but they also began to place bets on which would survive to the end, Zero Wing or Starlink. Starlink really knows how to splurge, sending so many peak adventurer teams here. Shifeng, who was still working in the candlelight trading firm, was similarly surprised when he heard the news. Hiring a top adventurer team to attack a guild in a level 100 neutral map was incredibly expensive, yet Starlink had dispatched so many of them. It had likely paid a high enough price that even super guilds would wince. Guild leader, I just received news that Starlink's Hellfire Legion members are starting to move toward the Cold Spring Forest. By the looks of it, they intend to attack our teams grinding in the area, Silent Wonder, who was grinding for EXP, worriedly reported. Why don't I negotiate with my family to borrow some of their experts? Zero Wing's members had Stone Forest City to fall back to, but they still had to leave the city to level up. Unfortunately, Zero Wing's foundations were still unsteady. Although an expert could rival a peak expert with the Crimson Sunset, Zero Wing didn't have enough of the sets to match the number of peak experts Starlink had dispatched. Of course, Starlink would suffer tremendously for taking such drastic action, but the organization was supported by the Starline Corporation. It had far more funds and resources than its opponent. Most importantly, several adventure alliances worked for Starlink. If this persisted, Zero Wing's position would become even more disadvantageous. That won't be necessary. You should just focus on leveling up, Shifeng said, chuckling. Starlink's foundations might be vast, but Zero Wing's no weakling. Shifeng wouldn't have dared consider clashing with Starlink directly before he had transferred Stone Forest City to the Cold Spring Canyon, but things had changed. All right. My team and I will try to reach level 100 as quickly as possible, Silent Wonder said, nodding. She knew that she could only display the Crimson Sunset's full strength by reaching level 100. After Shifeng disconnected his call with Silent Wonder, Liang Jing entered the basic meditation room. Guild leader, I've planned the basic organization and benefits for the Adventurer Alliance. The Alliance's residence is ready, as well. We now have residences in White River City, Starmoon City, Zero Wing City, and Stone Forest City. We can begin to recruit members at any time, Liang Jing proudly announced. She brimmed with anticipation and confidence about the new Adventurer Alliance Zero Wing was about to establish. Independent players might consider the benefits the other Adventurer Alliances offered outstanding, but those benefits were nothing compared to what Zero Wing's Adventurer Alliance had to offer. All right, make the announcement to the public now, then. Shifeng nodded. He had wanted to wait until the Azura Adventurer team had grown powerful enough before he established an Adventurer Alliance on the main continent with Azura's help, but since Starlink had bared its fangs, he had no choice but to move his plans forward. With Shifeng's go-ahead, Liang Jing published the news on Starmoon Kingdom's official forums. She also sent her subordinates to manage the recruitment at the newly established Starmoon Adventurer Alliance's residences. In no time, the kingdom was in an uproar. What? Zero Wings establishing an Adventurer Alliance? Maybe it's a move to counter Starlink's assault, but Starlink's Adventurer Alliances offer incredibly generous benefits. I doubt many people will be interested in Zero Wings. Wait, you're wrong. Look at what benefits the Starmoon Adventurer Alliance is offering. Any silver member will have access to Stone Forest City, and gold members will qualify to purchase private houses in the city. A private house? Isn't that a little too generous? So far, Zero Wing has only leased Stone Forest City's houses, yet countless people fought over them. If we could buy one of our own, our leveling speed would skyrocket. That's not all. The Starmoon Adventurer Alliance has quite a few residences, as well. There's even one in Stone Forest City and Zero Wing City, and members can rest in the residences for free. When the kingdom's independent players saw the benefits the Starmoon Adventurer Alliance offered, they were ecstatic. Many even dropped what they were doing and ran toward the recruitment venues. Stone Forest City was the only city in God's domain located in a level 100 neutral map. Countless experts dreamed of entering the city, not to mention purchasing one of Stone Forest City's private houses. Not even the various superpowers peak experts had that privilege. And yet, as long as they became a silver member in the Starmoon Adventurer Alliance, they could visit Stone Forest City whenever they wished. For a time, independent players crowded the entrances to the Starmoon Adventurer Alliance's residences. These players easily outnumbered those applying to join Zero Wing by more than a dozen times. There were even some peak experts among the crowds. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. Meanwhile, the adventurer teams that had come to White River City to target Zero Wing's members began to jump ship, one after another, applying to join the Starmoon Adventurer Alliance. The kingdom's various major powers were stupefied. However, they found these results reasonable. How could Starlink's meager resources possibly compare to the benefits Zero Wing offered, after all? Just being able to enter Stone Forest City would give players a massive lead in levels, not to mention the ability to purchase a private house in the city. Who would willingly miss out on the opportunity? Even independent experts from other kingdoms and empires made their way to Starmoon Kingdom when they heard the news. The Adventurer Alliances, the various otherworld powers, controlled rapidly lost members. While the Starmoon Adventurer Alliance's member count ballooned, Shifeng received a message from Kola. Guild leader, we've completed our promotions. Chapter 2379, Overestimating Oneself. They're finally done? Chapter 2379, Overestimating Oneself. They're finally done? Joy blossomed in Shifeng's heart when he read Kola's message. Any player that successfully completed their Tier 3 promotion quest at this stage of the game instantly became an Apex combatant. Their combat power would be leagues ahead of Tier 2 players. Not even Tier 2 domain realm experts were a match for Tier 3 players. Now that Kola and the others had completed their Tier 3 promotion quests as well, they could be the guild's spearhead, quelling any troubles that plagued their guildmates. Shifeng would no longer have to spend all day running around and putting out fires, having more time to invest in his own affairs. He still had many important, unfinished quests, but since Zero Wing had been at risk and lacked enough powerful experts to protect it from the various superpowers, Shifeng had been forced to put his quests on hold. Now that Kola and the others had returned, he could return to his quests without worry. Suddenly, Liang Jing contacted Shifeng, nervously informing him, "Guild leader, a group of people from Demon Palace wish to discuss business with you." The Demon Palace? Shifeng was confused when he heard the name. What business do they have with me? Demon Palace had been extremely famous during his previous life. Not only had the guild taken over the entire demonic hell world early on, but it had also been one of the few up-and-coming superpowers in God's domains. After years of development, it had grown into one of the few existences that had the power to contend with the 5 great superguilds of God's domain. However, the demonic hell world's planar passage was connected to the Ten Saints Empire, one of the 4 great empires. The Ten Saints Empire was also quite far from Star Moon Kingdom. Teleporting between the empire and the kingdom cost roughly 9 gold per person. "Do you wish to meet them?" Liang Jing asked. "Let them wait in the reception room for now. I'll head that way," Shifeng said. After giving the matter some thought, he agreed to meet with the Demon Palace's representatives. Demon Palace was no ordinary superpower. Although it had yet to reveal its fangs, no superpower would dare underestimate it. The Demon Palace had the support of 2 international corporations and was the demonic hell world's absolute overlord. The demonic hell world was only slightly smaller than an empire, and due to its environment, the players from the demonic hell world were far stronger than those on the main continent. In addition, Demon Palace had developed relatively smoothly since it had no competitors in its homeworld. Even the strongest super guild on the main continent struggled with roadblocks and setbacks, yet Demon Palace had faced no such issues. It was easy to imagine how powerful the guild had become. Most importantly, the easiest way for players to travel to the western continent was through the Ten Saints Empire. The empire had a dimensional passage, which was the largest and most stable in God's domain, that connected the 2 main continents. This passage also had the least restrictions. Naturally, the Ten Saints Empire's various superpowers had taken control of the dimensional passage after its activation. One of those superpowers was Demon Palace. Because of this, many superpowers petitioned the Demon Palace for partnerships, which allowed the guild to build its strength and influence. At this point, it was only slightly weaker than the 5 great superguilds. Once Shifeng had tidied up his work with the Crimson Sunsets, he made his way to the reception room in Zero Wing's residence. 3 demonic fighters in pitch-black armor quietly waited in the top-floor reception room. Not only were all 3 level 100, but their auras felt as if the demon god himself stood in the room with them. The Tier 2 experts standing guard by the doors shuddered as these auras washed over them. Zero Wing is quite interesting. Despite such weak members, it dares to provoke Starlink. If these core members were in our guild, they wouldn't even be elite members, a white-haired youth said, shaking his head as he eyed the several Zero Wing core members that had just left the room. They are a little underwhelming, but this is a kingdom, after all. It's a miracle that they've grown this strong, a robust, 2-3-meter tall, middle-aged man calmly stated. Moreover, Zero Wing's guild leader has reached Tier 3. It is not without reason that the Vice Guild leader has set his sights on Zero Wing. Naturally, the Vice Guild leader knows what he's doing. Zero Wing is lucky our Vice Guild leader has noticed it. Even Starlink's guild leader had to go to great lengths to negotiate a partnership, a tall, slim woman said with a reverent look whenever she mentioned Demon Palace's Vice Guild leader. As far as these 3 were concerned, neither Zero Wing nor the prosperous Starlink was of any significance. Only super guilds were worth Demon Palace's attention. While the trio conversed, Shifeng entered the room. However, the 3 players didn't seem overly interested in him. They only observed Shifeng in silence. "Greetings, Guild Leader Black Flame. I am Evil Chelene, an elder from Demon Palace, the middle-aged man introduced himself. My two companions are the vice-commanders of Demon Palace's 3rd Trump Card Legion. Greetings, Shifeng replied. When he sensed the trio's violent auras, he realized that all three were very strong. The middle-aged man, in particular, was likely only slightly weaker than Giant's Heart's White Autumn. If not for White Autumn's sea god's blessing, he wouldn't even be a match for the middle-aged man. May I know what business you have with me? Our vice-guild leader values the Star Moon Adventurer Alliance and desires a cut of the action. We aren't asking for much of the Alliance's shares, 30% will be enough. In return, Demon Palace will supply Zero Wing with the demonic Hellworld's rare materials and special legacies, Evil Chelene said. In addition, we would like a temporary residence in Stone Forest City and 30% of the city's shares. In exchange, Demon Palace will step in to resolve the Zero Wing's trouble with Starlink. I'm sure Starlink will back away out of respect for Demon Palace. With our members garrisoned in Stone Forest City, I'm sure we can provide a sufficient deterrent to the other superpowers if they have ideas of trying to steal the city. Zero Wing will be able to develop in peace and join the ranks of God's domain superpowers. Naturally, Zero Wing welcomes a partnership between Demon Palace and the Star Moon Adventurer Alliance. However, we can handle Starlink on our own. There is no need for Demon Palace to get involved, Shifeng said, chuckling. Shifeng had no intention of parting with a single % of Stone Forest City's shares right now, let alone handing over 30% in exchange for protection. Although you are quite formidable, Guild Leader Black Flame, you are only one person. Meanwhile, thanks to some of the demonic Hellworld special legacies, Starlink has established the Hellfire Legion, its strongest force. If you encounter 5 or 6 members of the Hellfire Legion, you might be fine, but even as a Tier 3 player, a 100-man team may overtake you. You should reconsider, Evil Chelene said, sneering disdainfully when he heard that Shifeng had no intention of sharing Stone Forest City. He assumed Shifeng must think himself invincible now that he had reached Tier 3, but even Tier 3 players would have to flee from a 100-man team from the Hellfire Legion, not to mention Zero Wing's other experts. Demon Palace had already shown a lot of respect by offering to help Zero Wing. Thank you for your warning, Elder Chelene, but I am confident that Zero Wing can cope with this situation on its own, Shifeng said. If there's nothing else, I'll be taking my leave. I still have other matters I need to attend to. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. After dismissing his guests, Shifeng stood and left the Demon Palace's representatives alone in the reception room. By the looks of it, Elder, it will be impossible to ally with Zero Wing regarding Stone Forest City. Black Flame is simply too arrogant, the white-haired youth beside Evil Chelene said. However, the Vice-Guild leader told us to secure Stone Forest City. What should we do? It's fine. We can wait. Black Flame overestimates himself, but once Starlink takes care of Zero Wing, I'm sure he'll come to his senses, Evil Chelene said, sneering at the door Shifeng had left through. However, our demands will be much higher once he's desperate. The Star Moon Adventurer Alliance had lured many experts away from Starlink's alliances, but the guild still had many peak experts and top adventurer teams on its side. Starlink also had the Hellfire Legion. With so many enemies at their doors, Zero Wing's members shouldn't even think of stepping out of Stone Forest City. Shortly after Evil Chelene's group left Zero Wing's residence, another group of 24 players wearing Zero Wing's guild emblems entered. Chapter 2380, Tier 3 Team. Chapter 2380, Tier 3 Team. Many players waited in Zero Wing's residence for their turn to take the recruitment test, making the residence quite lively. Because of the commotion, no one noticed the 24 cloaked Zero Wing members' arrival. At this point, seeing Zero Wings leave or enter the residence in their cloaks had become the norm. Starlink's bounty was no trivial matter, and for poorer experts, killing Zero Wings members for a quick buck was easy. Zero Wings members could only avoid hostile players by hiding their identities with black cloaks, and to enter the guild residences, they only needed to reveal their guild emblems to the members that guarded the entrances. Many of Zero Wings members had begun to take these precautions recently. However, unlike most of the guild's players, These cloaked players didn't stop to rest in the lounge or visit the quest area. They made their way straight to the guild leader's office, where Shifeng had been waiting for a while. Once they entered the office, the 24 players removed their cloaks and revealed themselves. As they did, violent, scorching auras filled the room. Their combined auras could paralyze Tier 2 experts with fear. "What do you think, guild leader? We're much stronger than before, aren't we?" Kola boasted as he radiated dense mana. "Guild leader, don't listen to him. He was the last of us to complete his promotion quest. He just got lucky and constructed an advanced gold mana body with an 80% completion rate," Shadow Sword said. "Hey, I'm satisfied with that. At least my mana body is better than yours. I'm happy enough to squeeze into the 8th place on the team," Kola said joyfully. Before they had left to challenge their Tier 3 promotion quests, Shifeng had informed them of the importance of their mana body and told them that they should try as hard as they could to earn a gold mana body. Shifeng had also offered tips about the mana body's construction process. Initially, Kola had only aimed to construct an intermediate gold mana body with an 85% completion rate, but during his second try, he had been inspired and constructed an advanced gold mana body. Of their group, only 10 people had completed an advanced gold mana body with a 75% completion rate or higher. Although the difference was only 1 rank, the difference between their stamina and concentration recovery rates was significant. An advanced gold mana body would be immensely helpful to them in the future. An advanced gold mana body with an 80% completion rate? Shifeng was surprised by Kola's achievement. Compared to magical class players, physical class players were at a disadvantage when constructing their mana bodies. Although Kola's combat standards were considerable, he was only averagely talented among Zero Wing's main force members. If not for his fragmented legendary shield, he wouldn't have even ranked among the top 15 in the main force with his combat power. Moreover, Shifeng had heard about the tyrant bear Kola's mana body during his previous life. At the time, Kola had only had a basic gold mana body with a 78% completion rate, yet he had still managed to shake Star Moon Kingdom, becoming one of its top-ranked MTS. Now that Kola had an advanced gold mana body with an 80% completion rate, his future strength would undergo a qualitative improvement. Kola's mana body is nothing, guild leader. Boss Tianxing and Big Sis Yi are even more amazing. Boss Tianxing constructed a 93% peak gold mana body, and Big Sis Yi constructed a 95% peak gold mana body. Their stamina and concentration recovery rates are ridiculous, Turtle Dove interjected. Originally, Turtle Dove had been relatively proud of constructing an advanced gold mana body. After all, Shifeng had told them that the difference between intermediate and advanced rank was considerable. However, Yang Tianxing, Yi Luorfei, Zhao Yueru, Silent Blade, Alluring Summer, and Yulan were so much more powerful. Every one of them had successfully constructed a peak gold mana body. Moreover, the weakest among them had an 80% completion rate. Since Stubborn Bone, who ranked 7th among them, hadn't been able to construct a peak gold mana body with an 80% completion or higher, he had settled for an 89% advanced gold mana body as he ran out of time. Compared to the top 7 players, Kola's achievement was nothing. While the team bickered, Shifeng received a compilation of their promotion results. He was shocked when he examined the data. Of the 24 players that had completed their Tier 3 promotion quests, the weakest of them had constructed an 80% peak silver mana body. Not even the superpowers of his past had dreamed of such wonderful results. In the past, the majority of the various superpowers experts had been fortunate to construct an intermediate or advanced silver mana body. Second- and third-rate guilds had thrown massive celebrations of any of their experts had constructed a silver mana body at all. A silver mana body was the minimum requirement for players to reach Tier 4 or higher, after all. Not even experts from ordinary guilds had dared to dream of acquiring a gold mana body. In fact, players with gold mana bodies were even quite rare in the various superpowers. Every additional expert with a gold mana body had significantly elevated a superpower's status. The advantages of a gold mana body when exploring level 100+ neutral maps were that massive. And yet, of the 24 Zero Wing members that completed their Tier 3 promotion quests, 19 had constructed gold mana bodies. Guild leader, we haven't had the opportunity to test out our new bodies, so I suggest we head to the battle arena. I agree. My body feels too strong. It feels a little strange to move. Since we've already completed our promotion quests, we should spar with each other to get a feel of our new strength. They had been too busy celebrating their success that they hadn't bothered to test their new strength. They hadn't had any good places to do so, either. However, since so many Tier 3 players were here, it was a good opportunity to learn what they could do. You want to test your new strength? Chuckling, Shifeng said, alright, it's simple then. Plenty of superpowers want a piece of our stone forest city right now, and Starlink has sent a large number of experts to the Cold Spring Forest. You guys can go and test your strength there, and while you're at it, inform Starlink's people that they have no place in the Cold Spring Forest. Even after finding out that Kola and the others had completed their Tier 3 promotion quests, Shifeng had still worried that they didn't have enough players to deal with Starlink's forces. Initially, he had planned to mobilize the Night Division to teach Starlink a lesson and warn the other superpowers against trying to steal Stone Forest City. However, it seemed that he could save Zero Wing's final trump card. With the superior mana bodies Kola and his companions had constructed, they could move through the Cold Spring Forest unobstructed. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU Starlink. Wonderful. I've been itching to practice some of the combat techniques I haven't fully mastered yet. Starlink's peak experts should be excellent practice partners. Shifeng's decision excited the entire team. Although fighting a bunch of Tier 2 experts wouldn't help them properly gauge their new strength, they could use this opportunity to test the effects of their Tier 3 mana bodies in a level 100 neutral map. The 24 main force members then resupplied and repaired their equipment in White River City before teleporting to Stone Forest City. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,